Mike Curry. He's a managed service provider, used to be in Southern California, Los Angeles, Pasadena area, moved to Connecticut, New York area. I've known him for 15 years. MSP to Wood is going to be the title of this conversation. Mike gives great insights to managed service providers and to small business owners on challenges and great tips on how to help them. You'll find out what the wood reference is. Very interesting transition itself from Southern California to Connecticut. And of course, to vendors that are listening to support small and medium-sized businesses or managed service providers on what to help. But a really great conversation with Mike Curry. I've known him for a long time, good friend of mine. He's able to somehow bring that kind of laid back, calm, demeanor into the Northeast. He still continues this day doing that. He's a real comfort and smart guy and very successful. You're going to enjoy this conversation. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic. I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Mike, nice to see you. Mike Curry, absolute pleasure, buddy. Thanks for doing this. Is it a good time to be an MSP, Mike?
Oh my God, you're rolling right into it, aren't you? With some loaded questions. How you doing, Joe? Joey Panone, Joey P.
I'm fantastic.
Good.
I've known you for 15 years, something like that, 10
Mm-hmm.
years. You started your MSP in Pasadena. How long have you been in MSP?
Okay, let me put on one of these like TikTok lights here so you can see me better. Look at that. Um,
Yeah.
how long have I been an MSP? Well, I mean, it wasn't called an MSP back then, but 25 years ago, I think I started my IT business. Supporting local businesses. Most start off in the insurance vertical. But when the word MSP started coming around, I jumped on that pretty quick. So whenever that became popular, yeah, I would say at least 25 years.
Yeah, same with me. So is it a good time now to be an MSP? You
Yeah,
still
I don't
are?
know if there's a bad time. I think that it certainly was. You were when you were an early adopter of being an MSP. You could differentiate yourself from everyone else. You know, all these other people were charging hourly and maybe not as organized or as well put together. And it was a great way to differentiate yourself. I think everyone is an MSP now. There's no one that isn't. Everyone who fixes computers or supports networks or sells cloud is in some form an MSP. So it's a little harder, I think, to differentiate yourself. But it's to get back to your original question, I think it's still a great time to be an MSP. I'm enjoying it.
And so there's always been, since I started, you started, everybody talks about managed service provider being a commodity and getting commoditized. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that's just an easy word to throw around to kind
Mm.
of either, I don't know, complain or have frustration around feeling like you're doing something different. I still think that if I think the special word is specialize. You know, if you are good at making yourself specialized or unique, or picking on a certain vertical or a certain solution stack that you provide, it's really hard to, like, I think, be considered commoditized. You offer something unique and valuable, and difficult to kind of duplicate. So I don't know. I think I would sort of argue that.
I would too. So why have you lasted this long, Mike? What's your key to your success?
Um, God, I don't. I think maybe just persistence, not wanting to give up. When you've got mouths to feed, or a family,
Mm,
it's not like you can just be like, okay, I've had enough. I don't. I don't want to wake up tomorrow, and I don't want to go to work. You kind of realize it's part of what you got to do. You've got the mortgage payments, the bills, the all the other good stuff, and just the fun things, the vacations, the time away. You realize that there's a sort of sometimes a price to pay for being your own boss, and so you do have to put in the extra hours so that you can go out and have that time off if you've kind of put it together pretty well. But I'm certainly not going to glorify how easy it is or how fun it is, or anything. It's definitely a roller coaster, and as long as I've known you, we've each shared those roller coasters, whether they're self-inflicted or
hmm.
just based on the current conditions in the marketplace. So I think that's my best answer there.
Yeah, I remember people approaching me who don't have their own business and say, it must be nice not having a boss. And I say, every one of my clients is my boss. I have more bosses now than I've ever had. So this, misconception that being your own boss, meaning you don't have to answer anybody, is not the case. Because if I start treating them poorly, they're going to do the worst thing possible and stop paying. So
Hmm.
it's very hard to do. Is running an MSP different, do you think, than running any other kind of small business, small to medium sized business?
Um, I think in the not necessarily in the area of providing services that are critical and needed, and if they're not working or unavailable, there's chaos, I think, or upset. So we're in that
Mm,
kind of almost like the healthcare or industry where when people aren't kind of talking to you or calling you or needing you when things are working, but when they're not working, you are very important. And sometimes they're pretty upset. Sometimes they're irritated, whether it's your problem or your fault or not. So I would say it's very similar in the industries that are supporting people with a very important, service. But other services, or I don't know, supermarkets or other stores, retail, online. I think it's pretty different. Um, so yeah, I would say it's different from many different types of business, but very similar in the kind that are supporting people.
yeah, when I think about you, Mike, I think about regionalization because California has its own set of laws that are different from other states. I know you've had challenges with some of the employee laws there in California that were really disheartening when you expressed them to our group before and you had to deal with that. So I know other small businesses have to deal with that specifically in California.
Yeah, each state is different, whether they're following federal guidelines or their own, and each state has their own preference on, who they're obviously trying their best to protect everyone, and
Right.
you kind of have to do your best to balance the employee or the employer, and of course, if you're the employer, you'd rather be better protected. If you're the employee, you'd rather be better protected, and there's no perfect balance, and each state is a little bit more unbalanced, I guess. So yeah, California, it does its best to protect everyone, and I think in this case, for me, it was tough because there was a little bit more protection on the employee side, and just making sure that employees are paid properly and fairly and considered. But it's really hard for them to go down into each category and to individually assess a situation. They have to just come up with a blanket law that protects it, and they can't get so micro. So I get it. You get kind of put into a box, and if you don't do something per what that box says, regardless of what your excuse is, you can get yourself in trouble. And that's there's been a few things that fortunately I've been able to crawl out from under that rock and survive.
Yeah. I most states that I know are generally pro-employee and not employer. I mean, I don't just a sample set of MSPs that we knew in our groups were that case, but your origin for your business is quite interesting because it kind of stemmed off your father's insurance company, correct?
I mean, yes and no. I would say because my father started an insurance agency early on, and I jumped into the helping him with the computer side of it when I was
Right.
in college. It gave me the ability to have some knowledge of both insurance and the computer side and the
Mm,
line of business applications that support insurance agencies. So that was the biggest benefit I got from my dad, was being immersed into the different solutions and how it works, and then able to take some of the being an agent for a while, understanding the wordage in that, and then but I wasn't necessarily introduced or didn't have other than maybe being able to throw my dad's name out there.
mm.
I really just had to separately go out and seek out other insurance agencies and try and get them as clients. So it was really also working for a company that supported insurance agencies before I went out on my own. That was also helpful.
Yeah, because generally, managed service providers, we're business to business. We're supporting other businesses. And when you can understand what a particular, what we call vertical is, in this case is insurance, what their applications they use, and you could speak that language and you know how to support it, it definitely gives you an edge over another managed service provider that's horizontal, that doesn't specialize in a particular or in that vertical. So he was kind of the guinea pig or the test set for that. So it was nice for you to understand that. Plus, you just kind of knew insurance yourself because you actually worked there for a while,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, a very short while, like,
Mm.
barely 6 months, but I was
Oh,
enough to kind of having a long time in the business, helping them out on summers, doing, filing, doing things like that. I was able to pick up some of the language in the insurance field. But yeah, to what you said, having being able to be knowledgeable in a particular vertical, and then utilize that to kind of differentiate yourself. And then once you do get in there, it makes you more sticky because they're like, deciding, you know, he does charge more. This person charges less, but this person down the street has no idea, what or how I run my business. So it is really worth paying more, and so you can, charge a premium on top of that. And then you get to invite yourself or be invited to certain tech, conferences related to that industry. You become maybe asked to be a speaker at some of those. You get introduced to sales reps and the software sales reps that are selling in the area. They actually uh, throw your name around when they're selling. So you get to like get immersed into that industry pretty easily if you do well. I wrote a few articles for some of the insurance broker magazines out
right.
there. So it's really smart. I think it's the smartest thing I did early on to keep my business going and differentiate myself.
Yeah, good for you. And when we first met, you were very heavily into that. Now you've made a big transition about 4 or 5 years ago, I believe, with your firm where you partnered up with another. Tell us about that because I know many small and medium businesses and managed service providers are looking for this kind of opportunity as well.
Yeah, I think I realized that, and it was funny. It was a book that we were all kind of looking at the time when we were in the same peer group together. Traction, by Gino Wickman, and he wrote another book called Rocket Fuel, and it started to talk about, how the value of partners in a business,
Mm,
sort of the yin yang, and in what one person is doing and the other is doing, and they're maybe not strong in everything. So I realized early on that was what was going on with me. I wasn't strong in this one department, but I was really strong in another, and I needed someone to help me fill that void. And so, yeah, someone in another peer group I joined, Tom Andrulis, he and I. sort of got to talking about the idea and the concept of kind of merging in with his business. And I was one of the first ones to do that with him. And since then, we've merged with about 7 other companies, and we've got about 4 others coming up. And
Hmm.
it's really helped change the a lot of things personally for me. I mean, I went from juggling 15, 20 things to, different positions sometimes, different responsibilities, different hats, and not doing them all well, to being able to focus on one or two, and do that well. And so it reduced my stress greatly and made me more efficient. So joining a team for me really worked. I was hesitant for 20 plus years until I finally realized, I'm willing to give this a chance with someone I trust. And thankfully it worked out.
Yeah, business owners that started their own business, it's hard to, this is my baby. I'm letting this go. Should I do this? I always give credit to Sergey and Brin at Google because, I believe it was 99 or 2000. You had Google was still, it was huge then. It's of course where it is now, but they actually said, we can't run this. Let's hire a CEO. I don't think they get enough credit for bringing Schmidt in, I believe at the time. He was at Novell, I believe. I'm not sure where he was. No, yeah, I'm pretty sure. But they don't get enough credit for doing that, for sitting back and saying, "Okay, this thing has gotten to a point we can't run anymore. Let's bring somebody in." And Mike, this was your baby. You started it. It sprang out there and in Pasadena, and now you've joined with some partners. You've merged your P&Ls together. I mean, talk to business owners that may have the fear. We've heard some bad stories. We've heard some good stories. Yours is a good story. I mean, kind of talk about the fears that you had and how you touched on it. But I want small business owners to really consider it. I mean, how well did you know your current partners? Did you play golf with them? Did you have dinner with them? Did you break bread, or did you play chess? I mean, what did you do to kind of understand them? And this is a guy or a girl that I can really be partner with in the long term.
Yeah, that is the scariest thing, because this is your baby. This isn't
Mm.
something that you just want to hand over. It's your lifeline. It's your financial guinea pig. So creating a partnership and feeling tied into something that may not be a good idea is scary. And you need to have probably a solid attorney look at it. You need to have an
Mm.
exit if you need to. But yeah, in this case, Tom and I had known each other for more than a year, at least in a peer group. And I would say peer groups are an excellent way to
Yeah.
get to know which is how we met, you and I. But peer groups, whether they're Evolve or they're local ones, they're bigger ones that are maybe not even necessarily MSP connected. Those are powerful ways to get to meet other like-minded MSPs or other companies. And that's where you can kind of see, hey, this guy in the peer group. It's great because we would open up all our financials and we'd be talking every quarter about issues, good things, bad things. And so you really know what's going on inside the business without just having to meet them straight off the street. And so I would say that, yeah, the I got to know Tom over at least 2 years almost before we decided to kind of move in together. And
Hmm.
it's sort of like, reminds me of dating a little bit, right? You don't want to just go straight to getting married. If you can, you want to date someone for a little while and get to know them before you decide to walk down the aisle. And so yeah, and it's been a solid partnership from that point forward. I really am thankful that he kept his side of the deal, and things are going smooth, and my retention has never been better. And there's just a lot of things. I would say 80 or 90% of the things that I used to worry about is completely gone and
Mm.
being managed by someone else.
Yeah, because Mike, you need to be in front of customers. You're very good at sales. You're very good at relationships. You're very good at development. That way, you already knew those customers that you've had on for 20 years. I don't know if you had any that long, but certainly for a long time. So, I mean, that's what you're doing primarily now: business development and deepening the relationships. Correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Client relationship. Doing what I was still doing before, but just not having the other everything else tying me
Mm.
down. So I was struggling to be able to have these monthly, quarterly meetings, actually getting, being more involved in the client's environment, and helping them, make adjustments to help their business. So yeah, it was a very fortunate change, and my clients, you would think, well, I don't think I can do this because my clients would get really worried or upset or concerned.
Right.
No, if they trust you already and they've been your client for a long time, they're going to continue to trust that you're making a good decision. And so you just sat down with most of them and explained why we were doing it, what we were doing, how it would look. And they said, as long as you're going to be involved, and as long as things move the way you say they are, we're fine. We'll be here. And I would say most of them are happier if, they get so much more support, and faster support, and they're glad I made the change. I don't think I lost anyone after the change.
I know when I sold my MSP, that was my big pitch. You're going to have a deeper bench now. Yes, you're still going to have the same technicians that you had before, the ones that you like, but they're
Hmm.
going to be able to rely on people that are deeper. And it's just a bigger company. The rates aren't increasing. You just have a very deeper bench, and everybody wins. Everybody
Hmm.
wins. So so let's talk about tips for MSPs. I mean, you talked about peer groups. You talked about looking at merging. Uh, what are some general tips? What can you tell current MSPs to help them?
Hmm. I mean, you first really want to try. I mean, if you can read that book, read it.
Mm,
Both of Gino Wickman's books. I would say figure out whether you are a process focused person, whether you're someone that I think I always forget the term that he uses in that book. He
yeah,
uses the
implementer and yeah, I
and
forget myself. Yeah,
yeah,
organizer.
there's the
Yeah,
other one where he's it's yeah so the implementer is the one who's very process focused, who's very good at getting under the surface of everything, and the entrepreneur is more of the guy who usually starts the business, or as the salesperson, has the relationships. And you're usually not both. You usually are definitely one way or the other. And if you're an implementer, you're going to have an amazing process, focused business, but you may be over processed and you won't know how to go get clients or retain clients or talk to your clients. And the other way around, like me, I was the entrepreneur. I was the one that was great at having relationships with clients, but I didn't have good processes. I didn't have good SOPs, and it was a mess. So I had all the good tools. I was a very early adopter of some of the best tools out there, but I didn't have necessarily I didn't take the time or want to take the time to implement all of those processes. So that's where Tom's team is way more process focused than me, and his whole team is great. So I would say figure out if you can do both and you're doing both great, then lucky you. If you are struggling in one or the other, try and either figure out if you can still do the other side, do whatever you're weak at better. And there are plenty of people who have done that and become much better at it. Find a company you can outsource to that will do that piece for you if you don't feel like partnering up with someone, or bring on a partner, or join a company kind of like what we've formed at Intelligent Technical Solutions, where you can kind of join in but still have some ownership in your business. And unless you want to walk away, I'm sorry, this is sounding like a sales pitch, but
no.
it if you do want to walk away, you can. But if you don't, you stay on board with these companies. There's several out there that do it, and you just become part of a bigger team, without necessarily losing your equity and all your hard work and your income. We would never want to merge in with another company without the employees and the business owner to be compensated the same as they already were. So I would say that's some of the most solid advice I've learned. It's years of pain and struggle, not wanting to confront the fact that I wasn't able to do both, both types of the business. Um, And I would say, like we talked about earlier, one of my biggest suggestions would be see if you can focus on a vertical. Go look at the list of all your clients. Is there a majority of them in a certain industry, dental, um, not just any small business? Find out if you can then learn more about their business. Ask those clients if they've got other friendly competitors or other trade magazines they can recommend you look at, and reach out to the software solutions that are for that industry and see if you can make relationships there. Um, those are two big ones I would say without taking this on a 2-hour episode.
Yeah, and peer groups too, right? And
Hmm.
even it could be horizontal, like the entrepreneur EO, and there's plenty of even the Toastmasters teach you how to to speak. All these peer groups just get you out of that bubble. At one point, you mentioned SOP, which of course is standard operating procedure, which very common in businesses. A particular order that you follow certain areas in, or when a problem happens, you have an SOP that follows up. Uh, let's talk about the technology. Like we were fortunate just this week to be in a focus group with Microsoft where we're talking about applications. Where's that going? There was so much hesitant. I shouldn't say a lot of hesitancy, but there was the whole initiative to the cloud for the MSPs. What's going to happen to our servers now they're in the cloud? What's happening next? We feel, I believe you share in that the next trend is applications. We're going to have to, support the MSPs are going to have to support the applications in order to support their clients better. Talk about the technology direction a little bit. Do you think there's an evolution happening here with the managed service providers?
I mean, I think there's clearly the move to a more cloud-based web browser, application, that has been around for quite a while now. I think there's still companies providing both the thin client, the client base, but also the browser.
Uh-huh.
We were early adopters of, ConnectWise, for example, which is managed now. But I would say that for me, I kind of found that I didn't want to like sort of build my own kit. I
Mm,
didn't build my own car. Why would I build my own MSP solution software? It just sounds like it would be a nightmare. And I'm not a programmer. I'm not a software guy like you.
mm.
So I realized I had limits there, and I might as well pick one of the best ones because they're probably going to integrate with all the other solutions, and might have the financial backing to continue to integrate with other tools. So early on, thankfully, I grabbed that, and you bump around with all these shiny objects and these different tools out there. I jumped onto lab tech too, and
That's
just kind of made some lucky investments early on that ended up being like the right road, because it is very painful to move from one solution to another.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm just seeing a lot of great open API type relationships now, where what once these companies were keeping a very closed control over access to their data and connecting with other data, now they're just like, hey, let's all just let these solutions communicate together. And it's making it better for us at the end because we're not needing to do a lot of double entry. You've got these other tools that are connected, like we use MSP CFO, we use Breakage. We're trying to like get the most out of the analytics. We're trying to monitor with KPIs, and track. But the more you can have internally built into a machine, obviously is I think ideal. I think that's a lot of what the is happening over at ConnectWise with the integration and purchasing of a lot of different software solutions and bringing it all under one umbrella. That's what I'm seeing a little bit.
Yeah,
What
I
are you
definitely.
seeing?
Well, sure. I think the move from infrastructure to information is going to be a significant one. I think we're going to see it. I think we're starting to see it, and you're having companies like SaaS Alerts and Augment that's going to be wrapped around supporting applications. I think we're going to see more and more of it. I definitely see that. Let's talk about vendors. You mentioned some. Any vendors that are listening that want to support managed service providers or even small businesses? So, what are the things? So, tell me about some of the success and unsuccessful stories that you've had with vendors. You just mentioned some that you had a partner with. Parting with one tool to another can be very difficult. Why would you have to do that? And why was it so difficult?
Um, it's just like anything where I think what the sales team at a certain, solution or provider, what they'll show you ends up being sometimes unfortunately different than actually what you
Mm,
get. You kind of get sold something and then you start to say, okay, well, I think you said it could do this, but it doesn't really do it. And if you find that you or your team or your clients are limited to what they can do with certain things, I could definitely see or think of, I can't think of the exact names, but where situations have come where something is just not continued to grow. R&D is an issue. Actually, there's not like a solid roadmap for what they're going to do. So that's been times where we've kind of jumped ship or considered jumping ship. And
mhm,
every company, as long as you can be, I like clients who are patient with me in case something's not working right. I don't like the ones that are just gonna jump ship, after something little, doesn't quite go right. And I want to do the same for being the client for some of these companies. So I'll do my best to share concerns, frustrations. I can't think of one company that I've or business or a solution that I've used where it has had its problems, and I've had to kind of work my way up the chain to try and get help with it. But I'm not. It's very painful, like we just said earlier, to just jump ship and change to a different
mm.
solution, and you end up keep doing that, and you end up finding out that the rest aren't all that much better, and all you did was put yourself and everyone else through the pain of switching when you probably will end up going back to the first one you picked
Mm.
anyway. I've seen that a little bit, but it just depends. I think sometimes you also need to just stop focusing so much on what something can't do and just do the most you can with what it can, and and go with utilizing that and try your best to kind of make it work.
So empty promises by the salespeople. That's one particular issue that vendors have because and to their defense, maybe sales was told something that the product was going to do and just ended up getting cut. We're not suggesting that they're lying, but we often see that sales are generally, compensated very differently than the rest, and so there's that. If there's a leadership issue, that happens. So messaging to us MSPs from the vendor is very important on what the product's going to do, what the roadmap's going to look like. How about the whole issue of, we've talked about this before, how some vendors have gone after our clients. Have you had
Hmm.
any issues there?
I really haven't because, like I said, I focused on a particular business. Well, so I take that back. There have been some insurance, say, related companies that ended up providing their own sort of internal IT department,
Wow.
MSP, and they provided, for example, an all-in-one box, which included the hardware. They shipped you out the thin client terminal. They hosted the data themselves. So there's definitely over the years been a shift from either taking away the ability to keep the servers that you're maintaining and charging your client for in-house with the line of business application on it, to ripping that out and putting it in the cloud, which is probably the best for the client in the long run, but it doesn't mean it's not painful or it doesn't have a financial impact on you
Right.
because they're no longer needing to have all these servers to support the solution in-house. But the first one I mentioned was painful to see that a vendor that I had been recommending clients to for quite a while had decided to try and become their own IT department, and I only really lost one or two clients to them, and but it was like a concern of how things could be going in the future.
So when you go to a trade show, we both go. We always see each other at, although we didn't this time, but generally like IT Nation and the big ones. What are some things that they can do at a booth, in your opinion? What attracts you to some of the vendors at some of these shows? Is it worth going? Do you find yourself going to some of the booths of partners that you're already with to see some new functions they have? What attracts you to a newer one?
Well, first of all, you don't remember seeing me at IT Nation? We
I'm
went to
sorry.
Universal Studios together.
I'm sorry. It was this one. I was at Universal Studios last week with my daughters, and it just washed past
Oh
me. I
my gosh!
apologize.
I'm like, didn't Joe and
We
I
walked the
spent the whole
whole
day
thing.
together?
We did that Velociraptor. It was
Yeah,
great.
yeah. I would say, you know, uh, these. I think a lot of people will tell you that going to these things is sometimes less about learning things in the workshops and the big, the big large, song and dance they do, the opening speakers and closers. It's a lot more of like who you end up sitting next to at lunch or
Mm,
breakfast and dinner, or walking around and meeting people at the different trade booths. You pick up a lot, like just talking to other MSPs and being like, "Hey, do you use this?" And they'll say, "Yeah," and they'll give you the unsales
mm,
feedback on it, and or creating lifelong relationships with people, like some of the other guys, Ryan and Neil. You end up meeting these people that you become friends with, and then you share the good and the bad and the ugly. Separately, when you get home, you have all these people who are utilizing the same tools. They're going through the same situations, the same pains. So I would say the IT nations, which are also kind of a larger version of like a peer group in a way, because it's all these like companies getting together and talking and sharing their experiences. So I go back for that. I go back because I've been going for 15 years or so. I go back to kind of see those friends, to continue to make hopefully more friends, and but for sure, they've gotten better at focusing on certain things at these breakout sessions, where it's less of a sales opportunity
mm.
for that speaker, and more of a, hey, we really want you to learn something here, and some takeaway. That's what kind of keeps bringing me back, and it's a lot of fun. I get to you get to have good times in the afternoons, evenings, and Universal Studios.
That's right. It's a blast. Yeah, and it's a really important thing you just mentioned. How you'll be with all the vendors and their with their booths and everything, and you just kind of see a booth and just it's a vendor you never heard of, and then you see an MSP walk away and you know them. You say, "Hey, do you use them? What's the inside on that?"
Hmm.
And vendors, if you're listening, keep that in mind. What the other MSPs are saying about you is really important. And I know in my case I would go, I'll just say who it is, WatchGuard. We use WatchGuard all of our life at our MSP. And I would go to their booth and I would talk to them and they would tell me things that I didn't even know we had yet. So a lot of times I tell vendors it's partner tax. You're not just looking to get net new at these events, but you're also looking to deepen your relationship with your current partners. I said, wow, I'm going to start telling my clients about that right away. Some of these new revisions are great that you have. I didn't even know about it. Uh, that's also important if vendors are listening. Now the problem of course is that a lot of times marketing is sponsoring these events and they want to see net new, they don't want to see actual, the ROI might be gauged differently, but it's important as well,
Definitely.
for vendors to know that. Um, so any advice, vendor walks up to you, you don't know who they are, and they say, "Look, I'll buy you a beer or I'll buy you a bottle of vodka if you tell me some advice on how we can better partner with MSPs."
Hmm. Um, I think a lot of times the product sells itself.
Mm,
If they built a product that has a need, is either replacing or enhancing or doing something brand new that is needed, you know, you just need to have someone who can best explain what that product does and why it's important. And it
Mm,
may, you don't even need to explain why it's important. If you can explain what it does, the MSP is already going to be thinking to themselves, "Oh my God, you mean it's going to fix this or fix that, or it's going to replace this?" So I would just say starting with a solid service or product is the first start, and if you can then interpret or explain exactly what it does and how it does it, that's the second most important thing. Sort of so providing some type of an opportunity to just have a brief 5 or 10 minute, whether it's a video you want to send out or it's joining these peer groups and getting an opportunity to just share 10 minutes of what your product does and sticking around, being around there socially. You've got some of these unique personalities that you and I have met, like Jan, at eFolder, and these people that they actually do care about what you say and what you're doing, and they do have a lot of faith in their product. Those people are going to stand out and be remembered for a very long time, and they're going to be the first person you think of when you decide you need some solution like that, like a backup solution. So just be honest and be knowledgeable of your product, and come with a um, you know valuable service that we can use, and then don't just disappear once it's been sold. Be around, be a friend, be a good solid contact that's available.
yeah, well said, Mike. Well said. And speak our language. You mentioned Jan. I'll say Jan Spring. I remember the first time it was in our peer group, and you have this woman, this tiny woman, in her 80s, uh,
Mhm.
just tough as nails. And she just, pounded her fist on that table and said, "Look," with her Atlanta accent, and said, I'd rather be hit with a stick than clean my house, but we know how to back up your software. And let me tell you how, I've mesmerized, and I bought in, and I, to this day, if I still have my MSP, we still use it, and it's gone up to Action. And I mean, she, again, she spoke our language. She knew exactly who we are, how we work with our clients. She was effective. She was always there every quarter, right? Jan Spring, we all
Mhm.
knew her, and even her competitors knew her, and perfect example, Mike. Perfect
Mhm.
example. Yeah, vendors can really learn a lot from that, and really, really good example. Mike Curry, what motivates you?
Oh man. Um, what just kind of kept me going or excited, I think initially was wanting to achieve something, wanting to, whether initially financial kind of uh, safety, maybe a certain expectation of where I think I can take myself if I'm smart enough to make it here. My dad was a successful business owner, and he was really pushing for me to do that. So that really helped me kind of get the confidence that I could do it. And then just once you get momentum, it's kind of like it's that like that flywheel. I think it's the hardest part is getting it started and getting it going. But once you start getting the new clients coming in, the referrals, you get bigger projects, you get bigger clients. That all just keeps getting you excited, and then it becomes less difficult to really push like you did in the beginning. You can, and you can certainly, you just be careful you don't work yourself out too much, but you then can start to enjoy the benefits of what you've done, and start enjoying not having 80 70-hour work weeks. Start slowing down, and about that time you probably start having some family, you start growing, and you want to take more and more time off. So I would say at the end of the day, eventually family takes over for me.
Mm.
That supporting them, making them, you know, giving them the best I can as far as opportunities in their lives. So that kind of that motivates you to get up and go do things, and you don't really have a choice, sort of, for me, to not be motivated to work. So I would say it starts off very different. It starts off selfishly, like most people are before they're married or have kids. It's about me, and what I want and what I want to achieve and what kind of car I want to drive and what kind of house I want to buy. And then it ultimately becomes, I've got these two little mouths or three little mouths to feed. And that's, you want to make them proud. And I think that's what, would keep me motivated at the end of the day.
No, it's wonderful. It's beautiful, Mike. On the podcast, we talk. I always bring up discipline. I lost a bunch of weight. People always ask me how. Like it's some simple explanation, but it's not. It's just a lifestyle change and discipline. How do you use self discipline in your Mike and in your life and your business?
Um, Yeah, I think there are a lot of aspects of my life where I would say I consider myself pretty disciplined. A lot of it, not something I can explain. I think it
Mm,
just comes from within. You either, but I think you have to be excited or interested in whatever it is you're being disciplined in. And you also have to see results. I think the two things I can think of right now that I've been disciplined in are very different. But one is health as far as fitness.
yeah.
I think you just go to the gym or you go work out, and maybe it feels good at first. Maybe you're going there because you want to achieve a certain goal. Maybe you want to lose weight, gain weight, and then the minute you start seeing results, it's like I think that made me want to continue to go and do more. So that kind of helped me continue to be disciplined to go. So I think the results are important, or being able to see results and to recognize them and give yourself a pat on the back. Another strange thing I became disciplined at was when I actually moved from Los Angeles to Connecticut,
Yeah.
your home state,
Yes.
and my business is still in LA. The
Yeah.
weather is very different out here. There's this white stuff that falls. In fact, I think we're supposed to get about 12 or 18 inches in the next 6 hours or so. So that was new for me. And someone out here there's a lot of trees, there's a lot of wood, and friends showed me this. A wood burning stove insert that he had, and I'm like, that looks cool. That, I mean, you can heat your house with that. I was like, yeah. And all these people there's wood people, tree guys out here have tons of wood. So I bought a splitter, and I've been splitting, and stacking and burning wood in my stove. And I probably have 2 or 3 winters worth of wood out there, and I love it. I think it gives me, I'm motivated to do it too, because it just gets me outside. It's a little bit of a meditation
Yeah.
process when you're sitting there and splitting wood. I can't say I'm, a real wood chopper guy. I don't have a big axe, but it's still, you have to do a lot. You have to split it, you have to stack it, then you have to move it to closer to your house, and then you have to move it into your house. And sorry, I don't know how this MSP thing went from computers to wood, but um, at the end of the day, I think you end up hopefully enjoying whatever it is that you're disciplined at, and that keeps it going. If you don't enjoy it, then it's really tough for me to stay disciplined. And there's certain parts of the MSP business I didn't enjoy doing, like the
Mm.
procedures or processes, and so I wasn't disciplined at it. So try and find a way to like it, and you'll hopefully stay disciplined.
Yeah, when I was over your place and I saw that cord of wood, I said, Mike, you are 3,000 miles away from LA, but you're really a lifetime away. I mean, it's incredible. But you still maintain, one of the things I love about you, you still have that kind of Southern California. You're still kind of laid back. You don't let things bother you that much. You're still you're not uptight like the typical kind of northeastern New York. Not that they're uptight, but they're just maybe a little higher strung. I guess I'll say,
Or
but you
intense,
a little more intense, yeah. But you managed to keep that, low, calm. settling misdemeanor. It's very, very comforting and inviting. I really admire that about you. How do you measure success?
Man, these questions are big, heavy questions. Uh, I think you have to have probably created some kind of a goal, of to some degree, maybe, and whether it's personal or whether it's work related, and you you you're able to focus on, stay disciplined in what it is you're doing until you've reached that goal or come close to that goal. And then you have to ask yourself, I think, am I happy with where I'm at? Yes, you could do more. You could definitely, continue to go on, and still, but I think in the end, you need to be able to recognize that you did achieve what you wanted to achieve and be happy about that. And that's hard, I think, for us business owners, because you end up, thinking that, making 500,000 a year or $1 million a year is like, you would have never thought you could do that when you were first starting off. And then when
Mm,
you reach that, you see other people who are doing 5 million, 10 million, 20
mm.
million, and you kind of remember that you're still successful at where you're at. You don't have to think that just because you're not at their number, you're not successful. So I think it really comes from, being humbled, and being content, and finding a place where you feel comfortable. And maybe that's that laid back, California, Southern California attitude of mine, where you should, work to live, not live to work.
Mm,
And things can be a little more, dog eat dog, I think, in the Northeast, especially with New York City being so
right.
close. Everyone's trying to get in front of the other person,
Mm.
and no one seems to be, um, always looking at the other. There's a FOMO, or just being jealous. And, at the end of the day, I just feel like you can be successful at anything. You just got to feel like you got to stay disciplined, like you said, and go out and try and achieve it.
Very well said, Mike. Very well said. Mike Curry, thank you so much. From MSB to Wood is a great title for this discussion. Gave great tips for MSPs and small business owners, and of course vendors that work with them, and plus a great insight on how successful you are. Mike, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to see you again next time face to face. And again, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Joe. It was a great show. I appreciate it.
You be well. Bye now.
See you, buddy.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations.